Hey, Zach, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Allison, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is a very exciting day for me. It is my first part two episode for any Rent Move Buy episode. So thanks. You're my first part two kind of guest.
I am honored to be that.
So this is a part two to the episode that we did with your partner, Karl, about short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, all of that jazz. And on that episode, it was great information. I think we got into how he started his company. We started really just touching like scratching the surface of how it is to actually run an Airbnb or short-term rental in this area. And I listened to it a couple of times and I had a lot of follow-up questions from people who had either watched or listened to the episode. And I thought, why not do an episode that's more, what you do, how you actually run these things and how you can be successful if you want to take it on yourself, or even if you don't, so you know what goes into it if you were to hire a company such as yours to run an Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah. So short-term rental is an excellent option. And I won't go into the benefits of short-term rental over long-term rental. There are a lot of them, and I think you and Carl covered a lot of those in part one. Um, but with that, there's a lot of things that go into running a successful short-term rental. So yeah, I'm happy to come on here today, dive into it, give as much advice as I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So you've been doing it for quite some time as well. I think you guys started the company several years ago at this point.
Yeah, we started in 2015. I came on in 2018. We had about 20 properties under management then. We're above 100 now. Um, and it's about 20,000 reservations that we've managed at this point. So a lot of data, a lot of learning has
Yeah.
gone into it along the way.
Yeah, that was some of the things I really enjoyed, and we'll obviously get into some of this today. But when I was talking to Carl before, it seems that you guys are empowered with a lot of data, which I think the normal person doing a Airbnb rental or I keep saying Airbnb, but obviously this extends to all, other short-term rentals.
It's become the Kleenex for
Yeah.
short-term rentals or Xerox. Yeah.
Well, it's like how you say you Google something, right? And it like used to be that you search something. So,
Now
man,
you
good on the
Airbnb your home or Airbnb for the weekend.
Yeah, it'll be good if one day if you Allison Semeka to get your house or sell your house. You think that's possible? No, anyway, yeah, we the data was really important. When I was listening to that and just thought it was really great how much you guys know and would love to pass it on to people. So, I have a bunch of questions that I had for you, but this can really just be a rolling conversation because that's what these episodes are. But I guess the first thing I really wanted to talk about, or that I tell people that's important with any kind of listing, regardless of it being a sale or a long term rental or a short term rental, are photos. And this is like kind of where my advice ends because I don't actually run an Airbnb myself or a short-term rental of any kind. So this is kind of where my advice stops, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that and then we can kind of roll from there.
Yeah, well, it's a great topic to start off with. I think it is possibly the one of the most important things about the listing. It's definitely one of the most important, could be the most important. Um, so photos, you definitely want to either invest in a professional photographer. Market rate for a DC home, you're looking at probably about $300. It will pay off in the long run, I assure you. If you do want to do it yourself, maybe you just you like DIY, or you just want to get into it. It's a good reason to get into photography. There is there are tons of blogs online that you can also look at to make sure that you're getting the right number of photos, the right angles. So I would definitely recommend that everybody just Google how to take great Airbnb photos. But they're also listening to this podcast, so let me also give you some tips right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one, you want to have a high quality camera. Now, iPhone, the newest smartphones, a lot of those, they can kind of compete a bit with the Nikons and all of that. But definitely don't have a flip phone, because
Do those
you're gonna
exist
want.
anymore?
I don't know. I think my grandfather actually still has one, but I
Okay.
won't have him taking any of my Airbnb photos for great dwellings anytime soon. So high quality camera. Also, the angle of which you're taking it, don't point down at the room. You want to have it looking like from the perspective of somebody walking into the room. Angles are huge. Rule of thirds. If you can kind of segment the room into, all right, you got, a third of the photo is, I don't know, something in the room that, yeah, yeah, draws your eye. One third, one third, one third. It's just basic photography techniques right there. You want an image of every single room that is the guest is going to use, right? Bedrooms, bathrooms, living rooms, kitchen, and then you want some detailed shots in there as well. If you have a cool piece of decor artwork on the coffee table, you put that in focus, have the background out of focus, looks really good.
I have to interrupt because I have to
Sure.
say, so I have a pet peeve with some of those photos. So I think some of those detailed photos are important, but I personally am detracted to a listing if there are lots of them. It's like, I don't really need to know what every piece of art looks like or the way that your, vase is situated on the desk or whatever. So I think it's good to show, I think that's what those are good photos to point out the specificity that a unit has. It's actually something Carl and I discussed is about how Airbnbs have more personality a lot of the times versus a hotel. And so to highlight that in a photo or two or maybe three is great. But there are times that there's so many detailed photos. I'm like, yeah, but ultimately I just need to understand more of the layout and the rooms versus the cool pieces of art that you bought and put into the unit.
Yeah, definitely don't overdo it. A couple of the detail shots are good. But for a one bedroom, you want about 10 to 12 photos of the interior, and then have some photos of the surrounding neighborhood. Also, if it's a smaller unit, you want to manage expectations. So if you can get a good looking floor plan and put that up as well, pays off in the long run, just to manage guest expectations, not have to deal with potential negative reviews in the future.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm a realtor, so I don't know prices if the prices that I get for my listings are vastly different than what like random Joe Schmo who wants to do an Airbnb would be getting. But you can get a full package of photos, floor plan, and everything else together from some companies or providers. And it is huge for people to just totally understand like, well, okay, I know what the kitchen looks like. I know what the bathroom looks like. I know what the two bedrooms look like. But where are they in relation to each other? Are they stacked bedrooms? Are they on opposite sides of the living space? That's a big deal if you've got people who stay up at different times or you've got kids or whatever and you want to understand that. Of course, you can explain it in the description, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, but having a visual representation of what that place is like just makes it so much easier to suss out those details.
Absolutely. Setting expectations, I mean, is huge. You want the listing photos to look as good as they possibly can. But yeah, adding some of those things like floor plans, it helps. Just again, make sure that you're advertising the right product.
Yeah. Okay, so we beat this to death. We know that you need good photos. so
Yes.
I mean, let's take a step back for 2 seconds. If somebody has decided that they want to do a short-term rental, they aren't looking to just pay their bills usually. They're hoping to make some money, a profit of some sort off of this place. So I'm sure if you have your place on Airbnb and you're doing an okay job, you can have some rentals and you'll be able to make some profit. Whether or not that covers your bills or not is a different question. But what we're really talking about today is how to make it a really top producing or, highly booked unit. Um, so okay, so now let's just pretend we're in a pool of a bunch of places that have great photos. What's the next thing you're doing to try to differentiate yourself to really stand out against the rest of the crowd?
Yeah. So title is definitely important. You want some keywords that are going to attract people to the listing. So when they're looking at the search results, they see a profile picture and they see that title. Make it good. You use close to Eastern Market, close to the capital, walking distance to the metro, spectacular, stunning home, right? So just some buzzwords um, for your beautiful home as well as the location that you're in. Also, in the description, put some time and effort into it. Make sure that you're describing the home as well as you possibly can, and selling the home as well. Believe it or not, even with people shortening attention spans, people do definitely read the description of the home. So put time into it.
Yeah. Is there any advice you have? And I don't know, maybe it's because I have a short attention span or I'm doing 18 things at once, but do you think there's too long of a description somebody can do? Or do you think like the more details, the better?
I think Airbnb, again, we're gonna use it as, the
The
for all
catch-all.
booking channels. Yes,
Sure.
I think they all have text limits, so you're probably gonna hit the limit before you get to that point, actually. So I would say no. If your home is worth writing about for that long, just go ahead and do it.
That's a good point. I mean, if there's enough stuff to write in there that's useful, then include it. All right.
Yeah, I would say, don't dedicate paragraphs to any of the negatives about it.
Sure.
Stop short of that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got good photos, we've got a good description. So what if you have a new um short-term rental and it's great, but I've always wondered how are places coming up on these platforms? What is the algorithm doing to pull up places at the top, at the bottom, on the first page, on the last page? Is there anything you can do? What does one do?
Yeah, there's definitely things that you can do. Now, Airbnb, VRBO, they're constantly changing their algorithms because they don't want, people to figure it out and be able to manipulate it. But there's still some lasting common factors that go into it. One is going to be reviews. I'll say that most importantly, you know, satisfy the guests that you have. Give them a great home, a clean home, a home that we mentioned before that manages that you set the right expectations and you fulfill those expectations. Um, so that is crucial. That's going to determine just where you are in the search results first and foremost. Next, I'd say calendar availability. Do everything you can to have an open calendar and make it open as far out as you can. There's a setting that says, how long do you want your booking window to be? I'd recommend if you can do it for a year, do it for a year, um, as long as it can be. And then price as well. So you can't overprice or they're going to drop you down in the search results. If you underprice, they're definitely going to bump you up in the search results, but then you're going to be leaving money on the table. So you want that sweet spot, what the market demands uh, in order to optimize your revenue. There's a
And
lot that goes into that, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I know people. So we just did an episode about how to price your home if you're listing it, and how to price your offer if you are purchasing a place. How do you know how to price a place if you're doing Airbnb or VRBO or any of those? And someone hasn't hired somebody like you yet.
Yeah, so you need to look at just what the demand is like when you first create the listing. So play around with the prices to see, what is that sweet spot. Uh, you probably want about 50% occupancy over the next 30 days, about 30% occupancy over the next 60 days. And then for the next 7 days, you should try to get about 100% occupancy. That tells you you're hitting a sweet spot right there. You're optimizing your revenue. Um, there are many, many things that you can do beyond that to really optimize your revenue, which is why uh, we have a consultant who worked for the hotel industry, professional revenue manager, to optimize our listings. But just the basic rule of thumb, if you can kind of play with it until you hit those occupancy rates, you'll do well.
Well, this is where my earlier point about your data is so helpful. So if somebody was interested in not managing a property themselves, because we're not even right now talking about the user experience once they've booked, which we should get to. But but other than that, you guys have all this data at your fingertips to be able to really morph and change a listing when you need to, depending on the market and all that. So that's I mean, I'm not here to sell you guys to anybody, but I mean, that's a massive benefit if somebody were to work with company.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know Carl went into it, but we can give very accurate projections about how much we can make for short-term rentals compared to long-term rentals. Reach out, send us an address. We are more than happy to give that to you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the user experience. So I think we can all say, okay, everybody wants to have a great experience. Um, everybody wants a clean place. I think that's one of the most understood factors. I mean, for me, when I go to a place, I hopefully have done enough research where I've looked at the photos, so I walk in knowing what to expect more or less. But you can never see cleanliness well from photos, or even if you, or even if the photos could be from when not before you came there, so it might not necessarily be they would be in the last year, but who knows? Maybe the place got trashed between now and then. Um, so cleanliness obviously really important. What are the other factors that maybe people don't focus on as much or should focus on that are like number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that people are, you know, considering?
Yeah, first impressions are huge. So think about the path that your guests are taking from when they park their vehicle or get off the metro and get to your home. I know you can't control, what the sidewalks look like, but the front of your home, the entrance to the home, super important. Curb appeal, right? If you can have a good first impression, so much easier to maintain that impression, throughout the stay. You know, people will overlook, smaller things, and still, have a great time, give you a great review, as opposed to if, if they walk up some stairs that look dangerous, you got a hinge falling off, or the it's difficult to get in. Let's say, it's a confusing keypad or something like that. Look, they just started off on the wrong foot, and so they're already in a bad mood. They're probably going to be seeing everything in the home, through that lens. So think about that initial experience. Make entry as easy as possible.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm thinking about I had to go home for a funeral sadly a couple of months ago, and my sister and I got an Airbnb last minute, and it was like, stressful, kind of unexpected trip getting there, and the keypad would not work. And you're sitting there holding your crap, like wanting to get in, and you realize like people are human and technology fails, but it did absolutely just put a really, it was already bad for us, right? We were already in a bad place, like literally a headspace, and then we had to deal with that. And it did. I mean, I remember later my sister, who's much more forgiving than I am, was like, "Oh, the place was really nice." And I was like, "This place was crap, like from start to finish." And I just now that I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm wondering, would I have totally thought that if I hadn't started off so poor standing in a hallway at 11:45 at night, you know, for
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, probably not. Let's say the instructions were clear and you got right in and you come in and it's well staged and you got a nice welcome gift right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it puts your mind at ease.
Yeah.
Um, that's something actually I want to talk about as well as staging. Staging is huge. Definitely the cleaners that you're using, train them to understand the importance of staging. Exactly how it looks in those photos that we talked about, it should look, like an actual property when the guest walks in.
Yeah. Well, that's like truth and details and listing, you want it to reflect, I I made this reservation. I bought into this reservation. I think that this concept is cool. I think this place looks nice or whatever. I understand what's listed and I accept what's listed. I want to then walk into what is listed. I don't want to be because the difference between this and buying a home or a hotel, but is you with these short-term rentals, you frequently don't get to visit them before, and there's no continuity in concept. So I go to a Kimpton and I know that a Kimpton will deliver these kinds of things in this kind of way. It might be a slightly different Kimpton, but like I get it. But with an Airbnb, I have no frame of reference for what to expect from this place. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really, really key.
Yeah, yeah, you said it perfectly.
Okay, so we talked about reviews, the first kind of impression being really important, staging being important. Is there anything else that you think people should really be strongly considering to do or not do, I guess, when they're going down this short-term rental path?
Yeah, so it's a lot of work, but communication, quick communication is very important. So we have a 24/7 team that we expect them to respond in less than 5 minutes as to everything, whether it's an inquiry, at 3 in the morning coming in from Europe, or there someone has an issue at a property, needs to be responded to quickly. So that's huge. It's huge for the guest experience. It's huge for the reviews that you're getting, ultimately the Airbnb performance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I I just think of all the times that things just go off the rails and it's just life, like something happens like, like I said, technology fails. I just keep thinking about the door we have in my building here. It's like one of those keypad ones and somebody accidentally flipped the thing in the back so that it stopped working correctly. And I sat there punching in the number over and over again. And I was like, I'm not losing my mind. I know this is what the code is. And it was something as simple as that. I mean, it can happen. Somebody may have just brushed against it, or it could have been like the mailman, right? Who came in and dropped the
Right.
mail off. Like it might not even be somebody on your team who messes something up. Um, so anyway, yeah, these are all things to consider. I mean, honestly, this is
Yeah.
making me kind of not want to ever run my own short short-term rental.
It is so much work, and that's why you should come to management companies like ours, because that
Yeah,
is that is our goal. Make you as much money as you would have made yourself, and you don't have to do the work.
yeah. Okay, so last kind of questions before we wrap up. So this is specific to Airbnb, and maybe there are things that are specific to other platforms, but like I'm always curious, what is Superhost exactly?
Yeah. So Airbnb has, so first of all, Superhost is a status on Airbnb that means that you exceed the basic expectations and standards that they have for hosting. So there's a few criteria that go into it. One is your rating for your listing or listings. It takes the average of all your listing ratings, puts them together. You need to be above 4.8, I believe. I don't think it's 4.7. I think it's 4.8. You have to have a certain amount of stays that you've hosted, which I think is pretty low. Most Airbnb hosts, especially if you're trying to maximize revenue with the investment property, you'll hit it. I think it's only about 10 stays per year. Communication time, you have to respond, leave in under 15 minutes. Um, and then the last one is no cancellations, which, and I mean no, zero cancellations for an entire year. So it doesn't matter if, your sister is coming into town or whatever, and you haven't seen her in 6 months. If there's a guest there, you can't cancel, or you won't be a super host.
Huh. I'm glad I asked. I had no idea. I just saw it when I book. I'm like, "Oh, cool, it's a superhost." I was like, "I don't know what that means." So, good to
Yeah.
know. Are there any other like statuses in an Airbnb or otherwise, or is that the main one that people see and have to deal with?
So that's the main one. You can actually filter when you're looking for your own Airbnb. You can filter by superhost only. Definitely recommend that people do that, because it's a standard that I think everyone should be hitting if you have a good Airbnb. Um, and Other channels besides Airbnb, they have their own versions of Superhost. I think VRBO has Premier Partner, I believe it is. I'm less familiar with the criteria that go into that, but I think any booking channel that you're on, whatever their Superhost or equivalent is, definitely be shooting for that, because people will might be excluded from the search results if not. And yeah, again, it just means that you're giving the guests the best experience.
Yeah. Well, that was so much awesome information. I really appreciate you coming on and going through this with us. I will link your info if anybody wants to reach out to you guys so that you can help them through the process or possibly manage something for them because they are overwhelmed by all the things we just talked about. But anyway, so thanks again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it.